We're going to block them all because we just can't figure out what they're going to do next. And doing this cat and mouse thing just isn't working. So we're just going to block everything, everything we can
But
think of
why
conceivably.
would you only do the two rigs and not all the rigs?
I don't know the full list of what rigs are involved. Is it just those two? Is it only those
Just those
two?
two. That's the thing. It's literally those two.
Okay. Well, in that case, I don't know.
Welcome to ScavTalk, an Escape from Tarkov podcast with a continued focus on developing the game, patch note analysis, theory crafting, and general gameplay discussions. My name is Church. I'm one of your hosts. I am a video editor for a Tarkov YouTuber named Airwing Marine.
And I am GigaBeef, a Tarkov YouTube and Dota 2 enjoyer.
Whoa.
And welcome back, everybody, to the ScavTalk podcast, where we talk about Escape from Tarkov and all those other kinds of things. Since the last episode, I was away in Stockholm, which was super fun. A couple of people have come and asked me about it on stream and that kind of thing, but it was very, very fun at the Stockholm ESL 1 Dota 2 Major. I'm still a casual enjoyer of the game that is Dota 2, and it's very, very fun. So I'm sure if you like Dota, you probably have already heard me talking about it, but that's basically what I've been doing this week. But how's your week been, Church? Have you been playing much Tarkov? You've been chilling, taking a bit of time until new content releases, or what's the deal? Or actually, I did see one tweet from you about Rust, so I'm a bit scared.
Yes, I've fallen into the dark side, dude. I've been sucked back in, dude. Rust is... Oh my god, I'm actually really hyped because I think the next update they're rolling out, which should be next week on Thursday, is the weapon recoil change. And
What are they doing?
Currently, Rust has a very CSGO style of recoil. And it's always been a gripe of mine because the game already asks a lot of you in terms of committing to play a wipe or whatever. I mean, if it's tough, right? Because you gotta farm to build your base, and if you lose resources, it's just it does ask quite a bit from the player. But you can make your own adventure nonetheless. But if you want to progress, you got to do the work, right? So once you get up into the actual having guns, they have recoil patterns. Like the SMGs aren't that bad. The MP5s kind of got a Z pattern that you got to learn. But the AK's got a crazy pattern. That's the I think it's an S basically, and that's the tier 3. That's the upper echelon of guns. It's the best of the best, and people can be so skilled at it where across 100 meters they are just full autoing you and beaming you right with the bullets, because that you lose hardly any accuracy cone is what they call it. But it's just the recoil is so crazy. And so it's there's these servers that people host and whatnot where you literally just go in and you train. It's got it's a custom made map and everything. It's got 10 meter, 25 meter, 50 meter targets, 100 meter targets, and you're just there controlling your spray, and it's got stats, and that's the joke is it's you shouldn't even bother playing Rust until you've mastered the sprays almost, because it's just you're kind of and so me and when I played, we just liked the game, but once we got to tier 3, the game wasn't any fun anymore because we couldn't compete, you know what I mean? So it was always just dang, we just gotta practice, and we did a little bit, but long story short,
CSGO with extra steps.
Long story short, I'm really excited for this change because I think they're going to make it more casual friendly. And I think that's a really good thing because, like I said, the game just asks so much of you. You're telling me that I got to play 16 hours and I got to play an additional 4 hours just to train every day so I'm warmed up and what? No, thank you, dude. So I'm excited to see. I've seen a lot of positive criticism, if you will. I don't know what the right word is, but a lot of positive feedback actually. People are saying, you know what, it sucks. Yeah, it sucks that I have over 1,000 hours in the training servers and I've spent all this time mastering my sprays, but you know what, this is probably a good change for the general population of Rust. I'm yeah, dude.
How is it being changed? Is it exactly like Tarkov with random spray patterns? Is that the deal?
I think what they're gonna do is more. I don't know. Like I think you can test the branch right now, like the test branch, but I haven't done that yet. But I think what they're gonna do is have it more less like CS:GO, where like the gun, your camera and gun kicks up, so you have to like counter pull down your mouse in the opposite direction to stay on target. I think what we're gonna do is just have it purely what I call like bloom, where your gun becomes like there is recoil, but it's very light, but your gun's accuracy decreases with sustained fire. So if you full auto,
Mm.
your shots just become increasingly exponentially more inaccurate. So I'm interested to see what they do, because yeah, that's just been like a big gripe of mine, big letdown. It made it hard to like really commit to the Rust experience. But yeah, I played a few. I played like an hour one day, and then I reconnected with a buddy last night, and we played last night. And I was like, dude, the
Did you
whole
go
time
like
I was
full
just
goblin
like,
mode?
yeah, I was like, dude, this is bringing back so many memories. So it was fun. It was fun.
That's good. That's
Right.
good. I still do want to try some Rust at some point. It's one of the
Mm-hmm.
games that's like on the list of things. I think because it's
Yeah,
so
yeah.
tangentially related. And the thing that kind of makes me want to as well is that rather than it just being sort of random, like it has its own seasonality as well and wipes
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well and that kind of thing. So it's kind of nice from that point of view. So maybe we do it at some point. I need to actually X out enough time to actually to figure it out. I need to get my we've got this like joke going on with basically with some of the guys in Discord where like my Thursday slot for streaming is just like all over the place. It's like the only thing that's consistent about it is it's not at the time when I say it's going to be. It usually happens, but it's not at the right time. So I need to get that down a little bit more consistently before I can like start going into other games. I think, which is kind of annoying because I really want to go, but well, we'll see. We'll see. I do want to play at some point though. It's definitely on my list because it intrigues me, right? You see so many cool moments and fun things happening. And it would also actually make watching the Rust videos better because sometimes it's one of those things where unless you play the game, you know, where they like zoom in on the stat, they're like, oh, look at all this loot that we got in this person's base. And I'm
Right.
like, I know what I'm looking at. You know,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like there's a
yeah.
couple of those moments where I don't really have any relative idea of
Mm-hmm.
how much that actually is, like what the items are and how long it takes to farm them. If there's 3 stacks of 40 of like a thing, I'm like, is that good? Is that not good?
Right,
It's hard to know.
right.
I assume it's good based on the zoom in with the directional blur. It
Yeah,
must be
yeah.
good, but you know, but otherwise, I'm not really sure. So yeah, I'm excited to get into it at some point. I think that it's probably I'm torn between like Daisy, Rust, and Hunt is kind of like the
Yeah, I
three
know,
sort of like
right?
closest ones that I've not picked up either of them recently and gone to them at all. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I mean, maybe I'll just maybe I'll just end up tacking a bit of one of them on the end of something else. I feel like Hunt is maybe the most accessible of the three
Mm-hmm.
games.
Yeah,
I
I
feel that
can totally
like
see that.
Daisy and yeah, I think Daisy and Rust you really have to plow a lot of hours in before you reap the rewards. Whereas I feel like Hunt is maybe from what I've seen. I mean, this is a complete you know, from someone who's like not sure exactly how they're going to get into any of these three games, from an
Mm-hmm.
outsider perspective, I'm leaning towards Hunt just because it seems slightly easier to ease into as opposed to being like, right, we're just going to go like full gamer hours for like 2 weeks,
Right.
and neglect Tarkov and you know blow up the channel and whatever, you know, all that all that stuff. So I don't know. We will see. We will see. Other than that, you've been Rust only. You played any EFT raids? No raids.
I'm scared, man. Scared from EFT.
No raids with the eyebrow.
Oh, that's hilarious, dude.
Someone
No
commented that on my
raids.
latest video. They commented no ergo, and then they had the eyebrow raised emoji, and I just honestly it made me laugh so much.
I love it.
Oh, it was so funny. It was like so minimalist. It just cracked
Mm-hmm.
me up. It was great. It hit me just right, just at the right time, and I was not expecting it, and also immediately understood what it was representing. It was fantastic. Um, I mean, I've done a little bit of Tarky. I mean, mostly on stream. So I was, as I said before, I was away from Thursday lunchtime, actually Thursday like mid morning, through to got back really late on Monday night. So I've had a couple of days back. I went straight into stream on Tuesday and then did like a late one on Thursday because there was like some more stuff going on here. But yeah, I mean the weekend was really fun. I'm not going to spend too long talking about Dota because I don't think the crossover is that
Mm-hmm.
high. I mean both games they make you hate your life and you know they're both masochistic. It was there's steep learning curves and there's really high highs and really terrible lows on both games, to be fair. But
Hmm.
it's amazing actually, like thinking about some of the non-parallels between the two games. Like when I was there at the event with people who kind of like are in the scene and like play all the time, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It makes you kind of miss not having that in EFT. I think I would say, because you do have tournaments, right? But it's not the same as having like a live event that's competitive and the game's designed or around esports and works as an esport.
Yeah.
Tarkov's never going to be that game. Maybe with Arena it could be, but right
Maybe.
now it's not going to be like that. Can you give me 2 seconds? I just need to deal with something real quick. Hold on. Anyway, what was I saying? So I was talking about Tarkov
Dota.
and tournaments and
Hmm.
Dota, and yeah, it was funny because I just, unless Arena gets into a particular zone where it makes events like that happen, like I don't know, just being part of the crowd and
Hmm.
watching the sick plays and the way that the game, it creates big highs and lows, huge like swing moments and stuff. It's, you don't really get that same kind of vibe with EFT. It's a completely different game in that sense, but it's a shame because you do miss out on a lot with that kind of like esports vibe. It's pretty cool to see the people at the top of their game playing against each other in a format that's like very controlled, where the skill
Right.
cap is really obvious. And I think we spoke about this before, kind of with inertia, where the skill cap's been decreased a bit. You could argue. I mean, tactically,
Hmm.
it's been, I guess, increased, but the actual mechanical skill has been decreased.
Right.
There's,
Right.
it's just a
Yeah, I
factor.
could
It's
agree
just
with
the
that.
way that things, yeah, it's just an outcome of the way that the game is being developed, which is fine. That's okay. They're different
Hmm.
games, but it did make me sort of long for something a little bit more like that would allow, because it feels great, right? And the community comes together a lot of these kind of things. Even people like who are super competitive, all the teams are really friendly with each other. Obviously, there's rivalries and whatnot, but broadly speaking, the community is really, really strong at these things. So it was great. It just got me thinking a little bit about that piece that's like not there for the Tarkov
Yeah.
world. But who knows? You never know. With Arena, I do actually think
Yeah.
that there's maybe
Could be
some hope,
potential.
but yeah, it was great. Had a good time, and then like EFT wise, I mean, so far, just I've really just been kind of testing out stuff and just like trying random things. So this week I was using shotguns, like random shotgun slugs, like different slugs, and was just playing around and figuring some things out and putting stuff together. So nothing too crazy. I would say, to be fair, that this last week, and maybe it's leaving for 5 days and then coming back to it, I have died a lot. I have died a lot. Like yesterday, I streamed and we had one good raid where I killed like 3 people. Outside of that, I could not stay alive. It was outrageous. It was actually outrageous.
Hmm.
Like I had one moment that was really sus on interchange, where where power station is, and then you've
Yes.
got the 2 ramps, and
Hmm.
on the sort of square between the 2 ramps, there's a series of containers.
Yes.
I was between 2 of the containers, and I just get shot randomly, or like I take damage to my
Hmm.
thorax. Right, no sound, no bullet sound, no bullet crack, nothing. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's really weird. It must be far away. And then I get shot again, thorax, and I die to M61. And I was like, huh. Like, I don't think I could be seen, based on where it is, I don't think you can be seen from the top of power station roof. I didn't go back and investigate, but you can't be seen from the power station roof. I was like, to be inaudible, it's got to be over 100 meters away. And I know how far 100 meters is from power station roof because it used to be a place that you did shoot upon in heaven. So I was within that radius, didn't have any sound. It could have just been buggy, right? It could have just been buggy. I
Yeah.
don't know. But that was
Hard to say.
really, really odd. It was just crack once, crack gone. And it was just damage on my PMC. And then we just
Hmm.
killed over and died. It was very strange. And then a couple of ones in factory, which I was like, it absolutely can be legit completely, but it was things where, kind of like engaging with somebody, and then I step out and just get insta head tapped with 9x18 out of like a Clin or something.
Hmm.
And I was like, I mean, it's possible. This stuff happens. This absolutely happens. And then lots of other situations where I just get into an engagement and someone just sprays with an M4 and hits me in the head with M855A1 on like the second bullet or something. So it's like, oh, I just couldn't stay alive, dude. Like it was
Yeah.
crazy. We played, I don't know how many raids we played, probably like 10 raids or something. I feel like I only survived like 3 or 4 of them. I don't know. It was rough. It was really rough. It's been a very, very rough week. So Yeah, I'm not sure. It's partly because I'm trying random goofy stuff and using guns that I don't normally use. Like I was using the M1A. I don't normally use the M1A. There's some people who are just like super M1A enjoyers. I'm not
Hmm.
really one of them. I'm more on like Team SR25. We can talk about that in a bit, actually, if you want, about the two different guns, because I'm normally SR25 team. But it's been very weird. It's been very weird. Tarkov is a strange thing at the moment, and it does. And for the first time, 'cause I know people have been saying that it feels quiet in raids. Did feel really quiet in raids for me this time for the
Whoa.
first time ever. Felt properly
Whoa.
quiet. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I think we talked about this before, but and I've heard other people say this within my circle, but I feel like the event they did was like kind of brought people back, but then quickly turned people away. And I don't know. I just felt like I haven't really played, so I can't say anything about it. So I don't know. I
Mm.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not really sure because it's sort of, I don't know. It's funny because I never really call hacks on anybody.
Mhm.
And it's just like having so many like sus encounters so in such rapid succession is quite unusual for me,
Right.
and does make me think. Huh, I wonder if the narrative of BSG have restricted the RMT stuff, and now there's more carries. I wonder
Yeah, I don't know, man.
whether that's actually done something, whether that's actually happening or following through. But
Yeah.
again, it's impossible to know whether these people, whether it's just
Right.
random or a bug or desync or whatever. So you can just never know, and it
You know
makes
what?
it impossible to tell.
Do you report these
Yeah,
sus
I do.
encounters? Okay.
I do now. I used to not bother because I used to not really report enough people, and I just used to forget, and so I
Mhm.
just would skip through the screens. But now I do because I think, well, even if it was slightly sus, if it's nothing, if they're not sus, then that's fine. It'll just be me, and then they won't get reported again. If it is sus, then it'll build up with all the other people who report them, and they might get looked into. That's my philosophy now. I may as well, but I still don't report that many people. I mean, even in that
Yeah.
one, I think I reported two. I think
Mhm.
maybe even only one. But it just felt weird. There's lots of weird fights where I was like, that's not necessarily like the guy who insta headshotted me in factory. Like, I didn't report him because that happens all the time, right? You're like 3 meters
Yeah.
away from each other. Like the guy literally could just like as soon as he heard me walk, he could have pre-fired because he knew I was coming, and then doink, it's just one shot through the eye socket. So it happens. I don't know. Very weird, but we'll just have to see. We'll just have to
Yeah.
see what happens. Hopefully, if it is people doing just general hacking rather than RMT hacking, or they're, I don't know, doing carries or whatever, then hopefully that's easier
Mhm.
to spot, and it gets caught and ends up stopping stuff. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, yeah, there was like there were two things that I saw this week. I mean, we could talk a little bit about the news in a second, but like, given we're on topic, there were two things that I saw just out there on social media in general about the new restrictions, and the one which is Rengar's clip, which just went like actually super
Was
viral
that
for
the one?
where he just said Tarkov is dog shit. There's literally just
Oh
that.
yeah, dude.
But then he
Yeah.
put the clip for reference, right? And he's
Right.
just like trying to put a third rig into his backpack, and he's
Mhm.
joking, right? It's like it's just really awkward when you try and put the backpack in. And it's like, oh, you can't have three, but he's just trying to optimize. It's just kind of annoying. I get that. That's fine. But he said in loads of places like, dude, it was a joke. Like everyone just needs to
Well,
chill out.
I'm gonna push back on that because what type of joke was it? Like, what's the punchline? You know what I mean? Like, Tarkov's a dog shit game. Here's the context. Oh, by the way, everyone, it was a joke. Like, was he being ironic? Tarkov's not a dog shit game. Was it meta irony where it's like the joke is that I'm shitting on Tarkov? Like,
I
what's
think
what's
that's
the
it.
joke?
I
Well,
think
see,
that's it.
that's a
That's the.
dangerous.
It is dangerous, but that's why it ended up the way it is, right? Because it's a dangerous joke, and people took it the way that it wasn't intended. I think.
Well, yeah,
Um,
because I can't fucking read people's minds with meta irony shit. I
yeah.
love meta irony, but I also like
Yeah.
if you're not like within their little sphere, then it's really hard to as an outsider to look at it a meta irony thing and determine if they're actually being ironic or if they're ironically being ironic, you
In
know.
some ways, though, I almost feel that that's where the full irony comes into the full circle. Because if you put something like that, then people don't know. Then people write on there like, dude plays the game 24 hours a day, and then he's still complaining, God, dude's so privileged, he gets to play video games for a living and he's still shitting game. And it's just like, I almost feel like it was trying to farm those responses in some ways as well, because then
Yeah.
that just like adds to it even more. So it's like people need to take it seriously, so that they write those responses. It's kind of like
Yeah.
a full, it's like proper next level meta Twitter
And
post.
it's so crazy because you can say, "Oh, guys, I was just kidding," I don't actually want to commit genocide. I was just kidding, guys. You know what I mean? Like, you could say some really extreme things and then throw up your card like, "Oh, I was just being ironic," So it's like you can never determine what they actually stand for. What's the actual truth behind? Yeah,
That's true. Yeah. The other one
sorry,
was
that's
no, that's fine. That's fine. No, that's fine. Yeah, because I think I just read it like that to start with, because I think it's like the context of the dude streams like 12 hours a day or whatever on this game. Like, he knows it's not dog shit. Like, yeah, anybody sensible knows that he doesn't think the game is dog shit. And Rengar also, because he's not. I think it's just like knowing a bit of like just the way that he plays and that kind of thing, and like maybe like a bit of his sense of humor. But he's got lots of stuff on YouTube. He's like one of the hardcore streamers that actually has like a YouTube presence and things as well. So he's I don't know. It's just like all of that for me. I was just like, okay, I sort of felt like I got the context straight away, and then I was like, oh, look at the comments of all the people being like, "Ooh, this is good." It's like I thought it was quite funny. But I definitely can see that. If you're maybe not necessarily as because I've ended up looking at Rengar quite a lot just because of his YouTube stuff and some of the things he does, and it's actually really interesting to me as a creator to see somebody doing kind of like YouTube guides and things as a dude who's like top 3 to Kappa. It's like it's different, right? It's a totally different vibe, and it's interesting and it's useful stuff. So that's why I think it's kind of cool. So I've spent probably a bit more time looking at him than maybe those who aren't watching as much like Tarkov content outside of his viewers, obviously. So maybe that's why I understood the context straight away. But it was quite funny, some of the responses. But it's that again, it's that divide of the Chad mentality of I play the game 12 hours a day, but the game sucks, versus the people who are like, adapt, overcome, go back to COD, bro. It's like the two. It's just like constant Twitter battle. I know it's awful. It's just really, really awful. Because you do have legit people who actually feel that way on both sides. It seems.
Yeah.
Which is quite funny. So I felt like it was a mockery of that in general. I think it maybe went a bit more out of control than you expected, but yeah, it was. Anyway, the point was more about RMT. That was kind of the first impact that I've seen of those restrictions. And then the other one was I actually just finished last week's podcast because I've been traveling and stuff, and I forgot to download it. I know because it came out on the Monday, so I was already away, so that's why. So I just finished it, and Jesse was telling a story of how he had his non-finding wave paracord in his secure container because he was playing reserve. He put it in his bag, and it wouldn't let him drop it in a fight. So he either had to try to find the paracord in the bag to drop it, or delete it, or whatever, or put it back in. I don't know, just delete it, I suppose, or fight the guy with the bag on, because it won't delete the item unless you say yes. But there's no way to say yes. I want to delete the item.
Are
and
you
drop
sure
the bag.
you want to drop your bag?
Yeah, like that doesn't appear,
yeah.
right? It just says no.
Right.
And so you go, well, okay, well, no, sure, but like, how do I make it not be no? Because I weigh 80 kilos, and someone's pushing on me with, with a meta mutant or something. So, and that was the other one that was kind of interesting. Outside of that, I mean, the restrictions, I don't know, I think they're more annoying early wipe than they are late wipe. Like now, a lot of people won't feel the restrictions. I think people will feel it a lot more at the beginning of the next wipe, whenever that is. So we'll see. But I thought it's interesting to like monitor those effects, those unwanted effects that come through in people's gameplay, just to get an idea of the scale of what it might actually impact, because you only see after people have tried it for a bit exactly what it might do and what random situations you might die in because of some annoying restriction, right? That wasn't intended. So
unintended consequences.
Yeah, so I've just like looking out for that, for the RMT stuff. But we did get a few tweets from Nikita. We did get a few tweets from Nikita. Going to move on to that. Actually, we had there was a couple of snippets from what I've seen since last time. We were talking about it a little bit before. So first one, Nikita said Tarkov TV next week, maybe ? Which everyone's thinking, yes, please, let's go. Let's hear what's going on. Why not? That's great. I don't really have much more to say on that other than let's watch Nikita talk about all the amazing things. And then the most asked question, when is Streets coming out? It's being done. We hope to see the first iteration before autumn, which quite obviously lit the Tarkov community on fire, with everyone being like, oh my goodness. So I think half the community is on the this is amazing train, and the other half of the community is like, they've never hit a deadline ever. I don't think it's coming before the end of the year train.
Yeah, I don't know, dude.
So we will see. I mean, I don't know. No one really knows.
Right.
I think it's fun the fact that he's said anything about it. It's better that he said a thing than saying nothing.
Yeah, sure.
So that's fine. And then we've got you mentioned it to me before actually, and reminded me that the Escape from Tarkov Twitter posted the eyes emoji on the Summer Games Fest, where the like lead guy or whatever put, June is only a couple of weeks away or whatever, and they did like the eyes, and they released the street. When was it? 2 years ago or something, or was it a year ago when they did the
Battle of
streets?
Concordia? I think it was a year ago.
Yeah, the
I think it was
Battle of
last year.
Concordia last year. Was it Battle of Concordia that they did at the Summer Games Fest? I forget which one it was exactly. Okay, so about a year ago then that they did that at the Summer Games Fest. So they may well release another thing, a Streets teaser or something with more of the map or whatever. But it's from that we can glean that they want to do something there. We've got Tarkov TV soon. Nikita's idea is that they want to see the first iteration of Streets before autumn. So if things would line up, then they tease it at Summer Games Fest in June, and that's going to be on, what did we say that was going to be? June the
8th or 9th.
8th? Yeah, around then. So they'll tease it then, and then we have, I don't know, 2 months before Streets. Do you imagine that Streets would be a wipe of some kind? Maybe
This
it's
is the
pushed into
thing.
August.
I'm kind of thinking they're gonna do. I don't know. I'm like torn, but I want to say a wipe, in the month of June. I don't know what's gonna be at Summer's Game Fest. I'm thinking Streets tease, and then I'm thinking there's gonna be a Streets content patch sometime close to autumn. September maybe, but not a wipe. I don't think they'll like. I don't know. That's kind of where I'm placing my chips at the moment.
When do you think a wipe would be though?
Probably like second week of June, maybe. Because what I'm thinking is they're gonna tease it. They're doing it. Apparently, they may do a Tarkov TV podcast, but I think they're gonna have a Streets teaser, and I think they're gonna have a very short segment in the Summer Games Fest, and it's gonna be a hype thing for Streets. But I want to say that there's a wipe coming with a content patch excluding Streets, like Lighthouse expansion, the rogue boxes, the Lighthouse trader, whatever new animations, which we didn't get to talk about last week because we recorded on a Wednesday and they launched, or Nikita posted it on Thursday, so maybe we'll jump to that. But that's kind of my prediction, anyways.
Yeah, because I mean, if it ends up going out to August or maybe even further, if it gets delayed or whatever, then it just begs the question: where does the Lighthouse expansion fit in? Does that come with Streets? And then, but you want to wipe because it'll be really stale at that point. But they shouldn't just wipe because they want to wipe. They should wipe because there's content. But they potentially have content with the Lighthouse expansion. So I think I'm still on the same order that I was talking about previously. I was just really hoped that the event had fed into it, but I still think Lighthouse expansion and a wipe would. Well, I didn't think a wipe would happen though originally. So maybe now I've shifted a little bit then. So Lighthouse expansion as is just comes, and then the wipe comes with Streets maybe, and then if it's going to be in autumn, maybe I think that's probably where I stand now. I would think, because it just feels unlikely that we'll get a wipe in a month or something. It seems, I don't know. It just seems, I don't know how the timing would function.
The timeline is very weird because I think you would want to wipe with Streets, but here's kind of what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that the Lighthouse expansion is coming with the trader, and I'm thinking the trader is directly related to Streets content. In other words, you want a freaking RPG or a high explosive whatever thing that takes out the BTR, you got to go to Lighthouse, drop or pay an expensive fee to get this item, and then you got to take it to Streets. I'm thinking that's the time, like that's the idea. So perhaps they want to do the Lighthouse expansion first with the trader, and like there's some new toys, and they could play around with the economy and see how the end trader works, and then like, okay, now we're gonna layer on streets and how these two things interact with each other. That's kind of my thought. But that's the thing, is like, I would think you would want to wipe absolutely with the trader. Again, we don't know how it works, but if it's gonna do anything with the flea market economy, then right now the economy is kind of like, it's very developed. You know what I mean? We're everyone's got. I don't think many players are struggling for money. I don't know. So
No, exactly. And the thing is, like, until something else happens, I just think we're gonna have. I mean, it depends on whether VSG think it's an issue or not with the player base. But you still see the fleas in a really super spot, and I think that it's, well, super weird, I should say. And I think that that's very much a function of, I don't know, newer player. I guess like newer players also just have moved through the progression and a higher tier anyways. There's just a much smaller player base of people going and running for those low level items. But you see,
right.
I went on today and power chords are still 35k and stuff. Like they're really expensive relative to where they always are. And lots of the times you can go onto the flea and there's 5 items. You know, there's 5 of certain types of cigarettes or something, and there's nothing. I think I went on the other day for his GPXs and there weren't any at all. There were none. There weren't any on the flea whatsoever. There's like less people farming, and so
Yeah.
I think there's still a decent number of high level players that just, you know, they just always play, and people are going to play no matter what. And those people hoover up those items that are sort of, you get a drop off, but I feel that the drop off in player base happens much more. Well, it's inevitably going to happen much more at the lower end of the scale. I think people who are just like no lifing the game are just going to no life the game regardless of what state it's in. I mean, yeah, I managed to sell. The reason why I was looking is because I had a GPX and I managed to sell it for 200k, and I think the fee was like 40 or something. So it still made
That's what I was
decent
gonna
amount.
ask you.
There was no one. There was no one on there. Right? If you want to make money now, farming items is actually really effective.
Is
I think it's just there's
the
not that many people playing.
is it the broken GPX, or is it a working GPX? Or there is no such thing. Is it just the broken GPX?
Yeah, there's probably some now. It usually gets a bit better in NA like afternoon, evening.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. When did they do the tax change?
Or was that 2 weeks ago?
That looks about right on this chart, because the average was like under 100k, and now the average after like the 12th of May, the average is like 60, now like 55k. I don't know. It's actually really, it's like dropped a lot. But what I was gonna say is, I wonder how much the tax changes affected it, because Airwing did a video about the hideout crafting, and his analysis was, if you want to make money, it's a lot more difficult now until you get level 3 intel. I think it's level 3 intel. Whatever gives you the flea market tax reduction,
Oh,
'cause
that's
that helps a lot.
true. I kind of forgot about that because I obviously have had that for ages.
Hmm.
And it's still expensive. There's a lot of cases where it's still really expensive, even with the flea market tax reduction from the hideout. There's a lot of cases where you're sat there fiddling around because the prices are all over. And this is the thing that I find. Maybe this is a kind of Euro specific thing. Like if you come on in the morning in European time, it's like Asia afternoon and European morning. Nobody on from NA really, and the flea market is just really dry. Like there's hardly anything there, so you get prices just fluctuate like crazy because it's like there's only 3 items. So there's one at 3k, there's one at 20k, and one at 50k. So it's like, well, if you want 3, you have to buy them all. Well, there's not really much choice. But then you spend half of your time finessing the price to say, okay, if I do it at 50, how much do I make? If I do it at 60, how much do I make? At 70, 80, 90, you know, to try and like get that sweet spot where the taxes aren't racing up with the items cost, and at some point it overtakes. I've actually spent more time doing that than I probably ever have now after this, because, as I said, the prices are volatile. It's not necessarily that easy to know exactly like what the tax is going to be until you put the item up. So you can kind of make a guess and put a few guesses in, but it's tough. It's tough.
I'm about
Yeah.
to um do some quick number crunching. I can figure out how to.
JDog in chat saying it's not just the EU. I play Primetime NA and I'm noticing the exact same thing. I guess, yeah, I guess it's all relative, but yeah, it depends on the item, I suppose. But the thing that I find most annoying, as someone else mentioned, for Shet, is actually a real pain, right? Because you have to look at the number. Either you have to put one up on the Flea to look at the price and try to figure it out with the taxes, and then put the whole stack up, or you do the whole stack and then you have to divide it by the number you've put up or whatever. It's not necessarily that intuitive. It's just annoying to have to work out exactly how much you're going to make when you put the stuff up on the flea market.
Well, free plug for Tarkov Market. They have a flea tax calculator. Excuse me.
Oh, cool. I think that formula is actually on the wiki. It's just very complicated.
Yeah, and they've updated their site quite frequently. So like I'm looking at it now just for funsies. If we want to sell it for 100,000 rubles, the GPX, our fee is with level 1 hideout management and Intel 1, it is 37, we'll say 38,000 rounded up.
Okay.
So 38%. And then if we have the level 3 built, it is 26,000 fee.
Yeah.
So 26%. And then if you have max hideout, it's 20,000 plus Intel 3. So it's
and then if you make that 200k, I don't remember what it went up to, but I think it's like 50 or something, 40 or 50k.
62.
62. Okay, well it's still worth it. It's still worth it to put it up at a higher rate, right? Because you already lose another 40, you get another 100k on the top line. So yeah, it's just fiddling around, and also thinking, are people going to buy it for 200,000?
Yeah.
That's also another question, because sometimes you get really unlucky and there's nothing up there, and you refresh and there's nothing up there. And you think, okay, and you finesse with the tax and there's nothing up there, and you post it. And as soon as you post it, 3 come in, 70, 60k, 20k. And you're like, no, and then you're going to sit there at the bottom of the list, and then other people are going to see it, come in and post theirs. Yeah, sometimes that happens too. So you just have to be ready that you might have to either leave it there for a long time or literally just take it down, because it's now been undercut by loads of people. You just turned up after the last one was bought before by someone who needed a view for whatever reason. Sometimes it's hard to know. But yeah, the flea is very thin. The flea is very thin. And I think it's maybe a combination then of
I would imagine
for the player base moving through the progression and not having to farm as much as you get more money, combined with the fact that lower level players are dropping out or have dropped out of the system after the trader block, because those are the players who had the least amount of stuff, went to find other games and are just chilling until next piece of content. It was my theory from the start, and I do think that that's continuing. So this is the thing, right? If you don't wipe, this is kind of coming all the way back to what I was saying before about the wipe. If you don't wipe until like another 2 months or whatever, I mean, I guess PSG, they've done this before where they've just sort of been waiting for content and just chilling, and the player base has been pretty low, and then people have been waiting for stuff. And that's happened for a while previously. So I suppose they don't really care. I mean, it doesn't really matter to them per se, other than just kind of slowly burning the player base down a little bit as they let things drag on, because it's just less fun. Just less fun. And the less people there are, then even less people want to, or even more people want to not play, or even less people want to play, just because the raids feel dead, or it just feels kind of like a bit pointless to play, because you're waiting for content anyway, and you're sort of waiting for a wipe. I don't know. It's a very weird situation that we're in right now, and I still enjoy playing the game. But as I said, like the last 2 sessions I had were not that fun, really.
Yeah.
They were okay, but there was a lot of running around seeing nobody, and then one of them I killed one guy, and then and I got shot in the head by like a completely silent Mosin man who was probably actually really new. He was just chilling out nearby, and I just didn't even hear him, and he killed me while I was looting the first guy, that kind of thing. So it's like, it's fine, and you can make money and whatever, but like, what for, right?
That's the thing.
It's a weird thing. And the quest now that I'm doing, like I didn't push through the quests that quickly, and so I'm still doing annoying tasks that I just think, well, with max traders, that wasn't even the point. I'm going for Kappa anyway, so I'm just sort of doing them to do them. Yeah, and then that's the problem. It's like when I feel like I perform a lot worse when I just like aimlessly wander around the map, because I don't really have a specific objective. So I don't know. It's a funny old spot. We'll see what they have to say. Or maybe Tarkov TV.
I'm curious what's coming. I think, I'm feeling like a wipes around the corner IMO, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. You mentioned before, so what we might get these new animations. You mentioned that before
Oh yeah,
about that
yeah.
update. What did you think of how they looked?
I mean, when I first saw it, I was like highly impressed. And then some people point out a few things, like there was a bit of a almost like a not a duplicate frame, but the transition from one stance to the running stance. There was like a single frame where I guess it was kind of like a duplicate frame, but there was like a frame where he was like frozen in like a stance, and then he started doing the running, and the same when he like stopped running. But I would say those are like, over 90% of the animation itself. I was like really impressed with. I was like, damn, BSG did this. Okay, sheesh. Um, shout out to all my Zoomers. I'm kind of curious though because I wonder. There's really no way of testing this, at least not within the confines of BSG's game, what they
Mhm.
give to us. But I just wonder if the stuttering steps that we see, like the third person animations, right?
Yeah.
Is that a lack of animation? Because like on one hand, I think that it's possible that when the player inputs a different direction, there is no system in place where it says, okay, it was playing this animation. We now need to take these frames and interpolate to the next new animation that's going to be played. I think like I want to say Dark Souls series has something similar, but I'm not positive on that. But anywho, I think what happens is like it's just like stops and immediately plays the next frame. So you get like this weird like it just doesn't look natural, right? I think that's one possibility. The other possibility is maybe just the net code issues, where it's like the animations aren't being updated properly. Like there's some type of like out of like desynchronization almost like inside the server, you know, like in other words, let me say it like this. If we were playing on, I would love to know what Tarkov land looks like, because if there was no like latency issues, would we still see these weird animations where people's feet are just like, morphing into each other when they're moving? So anyway, I don't know. That might be like I might be completely wrong about that second one. So I say all that to say I'm very curious to see what it looks like in the live implementation.
Exactly. When you're contending with netcode and desync and that kind of
Right.
stuff, it's always. I mean, it's going to be a very different story. We'll see. We'll see exactly that, because right now, when the when the netcode is looking okay, things don't look that bad. Like they're
Hmm.
okay. But it's the times when people just like zoom across,
Hmm.
um, and that kind of thing that makes everything look strange and weird, and some of the animations are terrible. It's funny because I almost would. I know that there's different teams doing different things, but if you were going to prioritize, I feel like animations is not something I ever really was that worried about, personally. I think I is the other things that we always talk about, the netcode and the audio, are more important than the animations. I feel like the animations are all right, right? It's like, do they need to
I think they're
be?
really good.
Yeah, do they need to be super pristine? I mean, I guess it matters more for people who are playing duo. For me, normally I only just see my enemy and then one of us is dead. So usually me.
Can I interject here? There's this
Mm.
weird phenomenon that I've been noticing with animations that's been bugging me forever. And ever since I noticed it, I can't stop noticing it. It drives me crazy. Have you seen people from afar when they're running and fighting? It looks as if they're loading a Mosin
Like their arm,
constantly.
like is
I
in
don't
the
know
air
what
kind of
it is,
thing.
but it looks like they're loading a Mosin, and they never have a Mosin. And once I've noticed that, and I can't stop seeing it, like any video I watch, I just see it all the time and it drives me crazy. I don't know what that is. Have you noticed this?
I mean, there used to be a bug that was exactly the thing. So they used to
Hmm.
like wave their arm in the air or something. I thought that was fixed, and I haven't personally noticed it, but it could well be the case at
Okay.
distance still. I'm not. I don't know though. I haven't seen it myself for a while.
I'll have to find a recent video from someone and send it to you, because it's just like, yeah, it's it's weird too because it's so distracting that it feels like it affects my aim. You know what I mean? It's like it's annoying.
I just
But
blame it on
anyways,
the bad animations. It's fine.
yes, copium. It wasn't that I whiffed the shot; it was the animations copium.
It's off-putting because the guy's just like over here, you know, shoot
Yeah,
up here instead.
man, I swear it just looks like he's loading a like it's almost like it looks exactly like he's loading a Mosin and sprinting. Like if you ever seen the scavs do that, it just looks like that on a PMC or player. It's weird. I'd have to,
Yeah.
like I said, I have to send it to you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I remember seeing that exact thing. That's the thing. I remember seeing exactly that and just not noticing it for a while. Maybe I just got used to it. I don't remember, but
Yeah.
there was definitely a time where that was the case, where players in the distance looked like they were. I mean, as you say, like reloading a Mosin is kind of what it looks like. I never thought it looked exactly like that. It was more the arm higher in the air. So maybe it was like partly fixed or something. Maybe the animation is better than it was, and now I just don't really notice anymore. But there's so many funky things. There
Mhm.
honestly are just so many funky things. But I mean, it looked cool, right? It looked
Yeah.
cool, and it looked more inertia-y.
Right. That's the key.
So yeah, exactly. And so maybe they were like, well, we need to upgrade the animations for inertia anyway,
Mhm.
so we'll put it all together in this new system for when we next release a bunch of content or whatever. Because I can imagine that, yeah, some of these weird kind of like the way that you see people quick peeking and things occasionally. I don't know whether all of the third person animations match up necessarily with the first
Mhm.
person animations
Yeah.
these days. It's hard to know. I've not done any testing on it. It'd be kind of interesting to see people do a bunch of different stuff and just see what it looks like from the other perspective. But then the problem is then you've also got desync on top of that, so it makes it even more
Yes, of
complicated
course.
because it's like maybe somebody did a little lean, but because of the desync, then it looks like it was really quick because the server's like, oh, they're over. Oh no, they're over here now.
Mhm.
And it was like it was catching up, and then it was actually too fast. So it ends up looking really, really extra speedy. You can never pull off one of those on your own. It feels like, but it's so complicated. To be honest, I don't really know. I think it's not really my field, so that's fair enough that I don't know. But it kind of is mind blowing that they actually managed to make any of this stuff look stable and nice anyway, with the various latencies and trying to link up all the different game clients and have
Mhm.
animations for when the server goes, oh, actually, you should be, slightly further here. Or that it needs to catch up and tries to play animations that look sensible. I know right now people just kind of go and move through, and that's never going to look great. But it's such a complicated beast once you delve into some of the details that people have put together. Usually, I mean, it's usually Veritas putting this kind of stuff together and just describing. I think there's one, was it in his audio video, I think, where he describes the full process of what happens when you click the button. And actually, when you break it all down, it's pretty magical that any of this stuff works ever. Never mind, there's no excuse, obviously, because various studios make it function, but it's definitely more complicated than people give it credit for, I think, just because of all the interactions and all the real life hardware networking and all that stuff that needs to go through. And then you've got to smooth that over in your game client in every situation with packets being either lost or late or whatever. It's complex. I don't envy them that task at all.
I follow a couple game devs. Like I think indie game devs is a better way to put it, but they had someone posted a comment on Twitter once. It was like, yeah, your game's great, but just add multiplayer support and the game would be so much better. And then they were like, multiplayer support? Oh, yeah, sure. We'll just add and then a whole bunch of like technical netcode word salad jargon that I completely just like, oh yeah, that sounds really complicated. You know what I mean? Like I don't envy anyone implementing that, especially like an indie team. Like good God, like just yeah. So I imagine it's a nightmare if you're learning it, So
Yeah, or trying to, and then this is one thing that I think is maybe underestimated, is trying to improve upon a system that already exists, right?
hmm
It's like building a house. But the house, you're trying to like renovate a property and make it completely different. That's very, very hard. It's actually harder than building something completely from scratch. And this is the thing, right? Tarkov is one of these games that's been built from a very basic starting point
hmm
in ways that it's and the way that the development has gone, it's very hard to know what's going to come in the future. So it's not like they sat down on day one and said, here's everything that's going to be in the game and this is how it's going to be. And then they just worked to that plan and boom, there you go, the final product. It's not how it's been, right? It's been very organic, and things have been added on. They've changed their mind about stuff. They've added in VoIP when they weren't thinking about doing it. They've ended up adding inertia, whether they intended to add that or not, I don't know, but exactly how, they've tested it multiple iterations. So trying to fit all these systems backwards into the game, it's almost as if you need to make Tarkov 1, and that's like, right, okay, we figured out finding what we want. Now we got to make Tarkov 2 from the ground up, completely starting again with all the stuff that we know and all the things, because Tarkov 1 is the prototype, and then you make it all again, but properly, right from the start, where you have Steam audio baked into it from the beginning. You have all of that other stuff. Like that's like the ideal scenario, but it's just not realistic because the amount of time that it takes. It'd still take years to rebuild it, right? Because you'd end up having new bugs in the new ways that you built it and that kind of thing. But and that's the issue with all this stuff, right? And then you add more stuff to Tarkov 2, and then you go, oh, now it's really bloated, and we never intended to have all these things. Now we need to go start again and do Tarkov 3. It's the inevitable outcome of system building. It's not just software development, it's just building any kind of system. It's always a way of these things, right? There's unintended consequences for future changes that were unexpected, and you can not really foresee those things, and it just makes it more problematic in the future. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, yeah, do you have anything else you want to add before we just move on to like a kind of tangent?
No, let's do it.
No, you're good. Have you looked at Arma Reforger that much? I've only looked at a little bit.
I did watch 3 clicks or 2 clicks. One of his channels. 2 clicks Phillips, I think, is his main channel. I think. Maybe it's 3 clicks. Anyways, yeah, he had a video about it and I watched it, and yeah, it seemed I don't know. I've never really played Arma, so I didn't really like, I'm just curious what he had to say about it. Yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts? Like, what would you see?
Yeah, because this is funny because I've not really played Arma either. The only Arma that I've interacted with was the engine used for DayZ, so I'm definitely no expert. But I've kind of had friends who've played the original Operation Flashpoint, and some of those like along the years. So I'm like, not follow its development specifically, but the problem that I've always found with Arma is that the systems are all amazing and in depth, but it always felt a little bit. Have you ever played like Microsoft Flight Sim 2000 or whatever? They're like. It's like everything functionally works quite well, but everything just feels slightly scuffed. That's always like the way that Arma felt to me, right?
Yeah.
And the graphics aren't that great, and like some of the UIs are like a bit weird, and like from any time I've seen it, and it's always kind of that way around, which is fine. And it does seem that a lot of that has been taken away. It kind of has always put me off a little bit with this Arma Reforger. But what was really cool is in some of those like in some of the videos of people that I watched talking about it, they were saying that because the modding, it's how would you describe it? It's open for modding, like now, like right from the beginning, and they're totally open to community mods and things. So honestly, that's so sensible.
Yeah,
right? Let the community make the stuff they want, because people make amazing things, and because they have that support, it's going to be fantastic. There was a clip of somebody doing some landscaping in there using some of the UI tools, like making mountains and changing the terrain, and it looks really, really sick. So I'm sure people are going to come up with some amazing campaigns. Like it's being said in chat, essentially they're giving the same tools as the devs use. So you basically have the same control as what the devs use to build the game, which is like awesome. And there's bots as well, so you can set up like campaigns and whatever to do various things. I don't know the full extent of what's possible. I think I actually, in that video that you watched, the 2 clicks one, was it maybe it wasn't that one? I don't know. Maybe it was, or maybe it wasn't that one. But someone was talking about the problem with you can destroy fences and all that kind of things, but you can't run down trees right now.
Yeah.
I really, really hope that they have that on the roadmap. I don't know enough about it to know whether they do or not, because that issue is in Squad, and it is infuriating. It is probably one of the biggest immersion breaking things about Squad. I hate it. I would rather clip through the trees completely and have them have no physical form whatsoever, and the tree just be in the tank as it glides through, than not have destructible trees.
In other words, if it's gonna break your immersion, either way, don't get in the way of the
gameplay.
At don't annoy the gameplay.
Exactly. If it's going to suck for immersion, don't get it in the way of the gameplay, because having your tank stopped dead in its tracks by a small bush is one of the most infuriating things that I've experienced in that kind of milsimi genre, because Squad's a lot more milsimmy than Tarkov in many ways because it's proper combat between two teams. I mean, it's arcadified in some sense, but the time to kill is super, super low. You die in like 2 shots. You hardly have any gear on you, really. You go back to Tarkov and you feel like a Warhammer 40,000 dreadnought in comparison. And you just feel very fragile in Squad, and you feel very exposed. When you get caught out of position, you feel really exposed. The movement is hard, and it is slow, and it is tough. And most of the time, unless you're using a specialized class, you don't always get like a 4x, for example. And some of the ranges, it's interesting because some of the ranges that you're fighting over require it, and you can end up in these weird situations where only the snipers or some of the more dedicated rifle positions can actually even engage, even if you can see each other, which is kind of weird. That doesn't happen in that many games. In most games, it's if you can see someone, you can shoot at them. Whereas in Squad, it's kind of almost for certain classes, if you don't have an actual optic, you're like, well, I've got iron sights, but the dude's like 400 meters. I can see them moving. I can call them out for my team. But that's the whole point of the game, right? It's like I can see the guys, I point them out. The dedicated squads that are supposed to do that, they do that, and it's very hard. I'll just give away my position if I try to shoot at them, and I won't be able to hit them anyway because I just don't have the optic for it. So it's kind of interesting. It looks so if they can fix that. There's a long story short about trees not being destructible because that's honestly it's infuriating in Squad. If they can fix that, it actually looks like it might be quite cool. I'm not sure if I'd pick it up right now because it seems pretty early in the development. But given, I don't know, there's lots of positive feedback about it. I think that it might be pretty cool. From what I've seen, as long as they keep going down the path that they're going, and the community is behind it, which I'm sure they will be because everyone loves being given these tools. And I think there's some of the big creators as well. Karmakut and a few other guys who they have like massive communities that come together to build things in these games if they're given the ability to do so. I think that driving force will bring more people into the game and into the right game modes, I suppose, because if you've got that free form ability to make whatever you want, eventually someone's going to hit on a formula that really works and people love. I think it's overwhelmingly likely anyway. I mean, maybe not, but I think it's just very likely. You give people that sandbox to be creative with their map design and things, and usually you get a good example. So
yep,
we'll have to see. It's exciting. As I said, maybe not right this second for a pickup because it still seems a little limited on in some cases, and it's still pretty early on in the development. But I definitely think it's one to keep an eye out on as how it progresses.
Yeah, and they're still working on Arma 4, is it? So this is like
Yes.
supposed to like subsidize that in a way, I guess. Yeah, I'm a big fan of mods and mod support, so I think they got a cool thing going and people can build these really unique things. And as you said, maybe we'll have a new battle royale type, not a literal battle royale, but battle royale was spawned from a mod for DayZ, so we'll have the next new thing on the block might come from Arma Reforger, you never know.
This is the thing, actually. Daily Cliche is saying in chat, Squad is based on a BF2 mod.
Yeah.
And so this is the thing. There's so many good things have come out of other good things. I mean, hell, Dota 2 was a mod, right? Like Warcraft 3. So this is the thing. People stumble upon amazing ideas. It's it's kind of like a breeding ground for just like fun stuff, and 99% of the maps and scenarios people create are going to be trash, and someone's going to either accidentally or creatively or a bit of both stumble upon a formula that really works super well. And it's a sort of trial and error. It's almost like a Darwinian evolution type thing. The games that are good, they get the players, and
Yeah.
it sort of snowballs. People then iterate on that to try to make them better. It's interesting. We'll see. We'll definitely see, and have to check it out at some point, I suppose. Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. It'd be nice to play, just because it's a bit different too. And I've not really played much Armor, and it's still milsimmy and hardcore and that kind of thing. Yeah,
one game
it's
that
nice.
caught my eye because it was relatively cheap and cheap because the marketing had like a survival element to it. And that game is called V Rising. I don't know if you've heard it or seen it.
I've heard the name.
Okay. It's basically World of Warcraft, but vampires in a survival context where you build base and, hit trees for resources and craft things. That's
Right.
basically it, which is
Sounds
kind
like a
of
bit of everything.
yeah. It's kind well, you know what it reminds me the most of is New World actually, in a
Oh yeah.
way, because you have that farming aspect, and you hit the trees like New World, you hit the rocks, and you upgrade your gear, and you can hit better stuff. But something that New World didn't have, I think it was in the alpha, was that survival aspect. I think originally they did in one of the closed testings, like the original game idea was supposed to have some type of like survival aspect where you could like raid people's bases and things like this, but they tested it, the feedback, they're like, okay, this isn't working, so they pivoted. But anywho, yeah, this it's an interesting game because I kind of missed out on that phase of gaming, the whole World of Warcraft type of games. I played it like some clones back in the day. But anyways, I've been playing that. It's kind of cool. I'm just taking it. It's my kind of like chill out game. I just they got different servers and different like presets. So there's like PVE, PvP, and then PvP full loot, which is when you die you lose your gear.
Okay.
So it's got different. This is the thing that I like is when games give you different player experiences. Um, I just think if you're not concerned about having less players to populate, like this, it's
Yeah.
kind of a conundrum because if you think about it, right, like let's say we'll take Tarkov as an example. Let's say you have a casual mode and a hardcore mode, just as an example. You could say, oh, you're going to split the player base, right? But you may bring in new players to take up those empty slots. So even if you did split it down 50-50, if someone was like, I like Tarkov, but it's too hardcore for me, here's a casual mode. Great. This is perfect for me. I want to play Tarkov now. I like
That's
Tarkov, but
true.
it's too casual for me. Great. This is perfect. They have a hardcore, like, you know what I mean? So as long
Mm,
as you're not worried about the very fine details of like, okay, we want to have enough players to make good use of our servers. Like I think maybe there's some because like Rust, for example, like we were trying to find a server last night and we wanted to like hit a sweet spot where like there was enough players on the size of a map that we could get crazy, but there wasn't too many players where we would just die at every corner. You know what I mean? So we're
yeah.
trying to find a good sweet spot there. But there's tons of servers. There's servers that are really high up in population. There's servers that are just completely dead. So you got like a wide range. And anyways, I don't know, but yeah, cool game, chill game. Kind of interesting with the survival stuff, base building. I might try some PVE stuff a little bit later. I'm kind of just having fun and
Yeah.
learning the game right now. But for now, it's just my chill out game, my vampire role playing simulator.
Yeah, there's actually been quite a few people talking in because people aren't really playing, right? And it all
Mhm.
just stems from that. Lots of people have been talking about what games are chill or different or stuff that people recommend, and I keep going back to the usuals or the ones that I've played in the past anyway,
Mhm.
just saying like, oh, you should try Subnautica and you should try this and try the
Mhm.
other thing, just because people are looking for something to do, but don't necessarily want to get involved in a completely new game that's going to consume them for
Right.
3 years, right? People
Right.
want in something that's going to, you know, last them for a bit, and especially through the drought of content for the time being, and then they
Mhm.
can come back afterwards. Yeah, it's a funny one. It's a funny one. Actually, I was talking to someone in Discord. It's actually Easy Eight, one of my newly appointed mods. He was talking about the Command and Conquer remaster. With
Mm.
I don't honestly have no idea how long this has been available for, how long it's been out. I really don't know. But he said I'm not actually going to look at it and look into it because I have a long history with Command and Conquer, and it's very entertaining titles all the way back to the original Red Alert, which is the first one that I played. There's one before that, but that was the first one I played. But apparently, it's one of the best remasters. He said, "Oh, it's really good. It's one of the best remasters I've seen." And I've played like the remastered Age of Empires and things, and they're always nice to when they actually fit on the screen. They don't put your screen into like 800 by 600 mode when you try to start the game up. You
Yeah.
have to do it in. You have to right click compatibility mode for Windows 95. You have to put it in admin. You have to do this. You have to put it in borderless windowed, otherwise it doesn't work. And then you load it up, and half the map's off the screen, and like you can see each pixel is about as big as your head. Yeah, so when they do those remasters and they put them in the proper resolutions and they kind of
Right.
just bring them up to speed again, it is awesome. So I might check that out because I had some very fond memories of
Mhm.
the old school, some of the old campaigns in those games. They were more straightforward times, which is kind of what makes it good. There was actually so many randoms. Do you play much Command and Conquer? Have you played much CNC?
I've missed out on that phase as well.
Okay, yeah. Because like it's funny. I did some of the old ones are good. There's always this kind of uh, there's a creep in most of these games where the original Red Alert is very sort of present day, and then the next one comes out and it's got to have like wacky technologies, and they always end up just devolving rapidly into sci-fi, which
Mm.
is fine. That's okay.
Hmm.
But in a way, you almost they have to like reset the series and go and start a new series and say, oh, this is called something else. Because otherwise, like, how do you progress the timeline without the technology progressing? It's hard to keep it in the same
Yeah, I
style.
get
I
you.
think I think that was one of the issues. Even whether the game's good or not, I mean, it's just it doesn't really matter. But you have something like Age of Empires 3, and it's just the game feels different because now it's all muskets and it's like a slightly further ahead game than Age of Empires. There's a sweet spot with some of these about like the setting that makes the balance work in the nice way. And when you try to advance that, it kind of like pulls away from the old games a little too much. It's tricky, but then I also feel for them because they try to make the same game over and over again, just with better graphics, without any changing anything in the gameplay loop. It's tough. It's tricky. But no, I played a bunch of the old CNCs, like the old Red Alert. There was like an actual sci-fi one called Tiberian Sun that was like proper sci-fi. The Tiberian series is always sci-fi, and then like CNC 3, Red Alert 3, there's like a ton of them, and then EA just went completely off the rails, deleted all the base building, and then everyone stopped playing the games
Mm.
because they killed the franchise. So it'd be fun to get back. It'd be fun to get back. So I think like going back to some old school gaming is always kind of cool. If I ever get really stuck and I just want something chill, I end up just like cracking out one of the emulators or whatever. Like
Oh yes.
PS2 emulators are actually pretty good these days.
Oh,
Is it called PSX?
yeah, I think
Oh,
so.
God, I can't remember what it's called. PSX2,
PSXCX.
PSXC2 or whatever.
Oh yeah.
That's actually really good. Like the
Yeah.
PS1 emulators have been amazing for a long time,
Hmm.
but the PlayStation 2 ones took a while to get up to speed. I don't know of any PS3 emulators. I think that's really a step too far, probably even now. And they probably would work, but I think they're too complicated. It's hard to make with like one man band teams or just like small teams of
Yeah.
people. It's hard to just like throw these things together, which is what these people
I'm
do before you. Yeah, it's hard.
I'm following one through like YouTube and Discord, and
Oh
trust
yeah.
me, the updates are very slow on that, that project. Like very slow. But yeah.
Yeah, they're just architecturally very complicated. So
Hmm.
then run all of that hardware in software on like a
Hmm.
Windows machine is not
Yeah.
that straightforward. Like you get some compatibility issues too with the old PlayStation 2 games, but I
Yeah.
played like Final Fantasy X through pretty much entirely on an emulator and stuff. Like it was
Yeah.
okay. It
Yeah.
works fine. Like it's really like these like now they're actually pretty good.
Yep.
So you can always crack some of those out because there's some real gems. The mapping some of the analog sticks is always a bit of a problem unless you've got a controller. But you're like, oh, you end up with like a
Yeah, it is.
Tarkov style. Like, how do I map R1,
Yeah.
R2, R? And you're all on the keyboard.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a wild tangent, but I
Hmm.
remember I had some of the best emulator experiences at university. The best one ever was when I downloaded the what was it? Was it like a Wii emulator?
Mm.
It might have been an GameCube. I can't remember. It was either like GameCube or Wii. I think it
Yeah.
was GameCube just because it was too. We would probably been
Right.
too advanced at that point. But
Right.
I just remember like we played a version of Super Smash Brothers anyway, and
Hmm.
we played and we bound all the keys so that four people could play it literally on my keyboard in my room, and it was insane. We had two people like at the ends of the keyboard
Hmm.
using the numbers like horizontally at each side and two people in the middle, like one person using the middle keys, one using arrows, one guy
Yeah.
using the numpad, and someone else using like QWER, but like the wrong way, like the other way around with like A and D. And we had like four people playing. Man, it was absolutely insane. It was actually insane. You could map all those keys. And if you had a gaming keyboard, like you can let all
Uh-huh.
the inputs through. So the game's just like, yeah, no problem. You can have four people play on the split screen. It was mental. It was mental. So that's like some seriously good times. There's some such good old games. They really are. They really are.
Just love the visual image of four guys crammed at a keyboard on a desk trying to play Super Smash Bros. Yeah, that's funny, dude.
Exactly. And like Super Smash 2 is just such a frenetic game as well. When you're all
Mm.
playing on the same keyboard, it's yeah. It's interesting. It's very interesting. So yeah, I don't know. There's lots of calls for people to be playing new and random and other different games. So
Hmm.
I don't know. I mean, I guess like fortunately or unfortunately, I'm still trying to find time to break out and actually do that. So, I don't know. It's hard for me to be bored because I just end up being so busy all the time, which I guess is good. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. So
I
what are
did
you
want
gonna
to
say?
ask you, jumping back a bit, I'm trying to think how to like
Mm-hmm.
link this. Speaking of nostalgia, what do you make of the rig change? The I don't know the names, but the one that's like it's got two by slots, 2x2 slots in it. Um, you know what I'm talking about? You're giving me
The
a
load
look of.
bearing one or one of the rigs in.
Okay, so the rig itself takes up 3x3, and when you open it, it has two 2x2s in it, and a couple 2x1s, and
I
like
think
one.
is that the load? I think that's the load bearing one. Let
Dude,
me
I don't
just
know the
check.
names. I just know what it looks like
I know
and the
what you mean. The
efficiency.
LBT, yeah. So the
Yes, yes,
LBT
and the MPPV.
1961A. It's very intuitively named.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very,
The
very.
1961A load bearing chest rig. Yes, it's good, and it's got two 2x2s, four 2x1s, and two 1x1s.
And the MPPV, the silver one,
Mm-hmm.
that's like the giga
Oh, that's the mega
efficiency.
one. Yeah.
Yes. So let me ask you this: what do you make of that change that we kind of started the show with? Because I think I kind of got baited into Rengar's tweet of it. In that I gave my Twitter's so weird, but anyways, I gave my 2 cents. What did I say? I said something like,
Oh, I didn't even see you replied.
yes. I said something like, yes, this is a very weird change from them. Like no context. Here's the change. Um, I said something like, "What's next? They're gonna ban mag carry limits," and then the subtweets went crazy, like just went a completely different direction. But anyways, um, yeah. So what's your take on it?
I don't
Both.
really. Yeah. I just don't really see. I would love to know why they thought this was
Yes.
necessary.
I'm so confused. I don't understand it.
I don't get it. Yeah, you can fill your backpack with a lot of rigs and get more slots.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of want to make the inference that people were doing it because of RMT. That's what the
That's
implication is by
right.
the blog. Whether that's actually the case or not, I just find it hard to believe.
That's what they did.
That's what people were actually doing, was going in with these like big rigs and stacking them into bags so they could fit loads of stuff in. But also from the flip side, given the restrictions that they've put in place, then why is this necessary?
Yeah,
You know,
I don't know, man.
like, don't you either need to stop people bringing in as much stuff and like doing min max bag packing stacking, or you make the stuff that's not find in raid not droppable, which they've done. So given that they've done that, why also have the rigs thing? It feels like maybe it's another one of these things where they've just done everything. They've just done everything.
Yeah,
They've gone, bags already restricted. Some items restricted. You can only bring in so many of these. Now they've gone, right, this isn't working. We're just going like full hog.
but
Everything's
there's
banned.
no
You can't
way.
bring anything. Now also no rigs, rig limits, bag limits on everything. Just nothing, everything. Just we'll try and block off everything. And maybe they're going about this the other way finally, because if it clearly isn't working, because otherwise they wouldn't have to continue putting in measures. So what they've done for now isn't harsh enough. So they're going on the full, this is the scorched earth policy now. This is we're going to put in place every possible restriction, and then we're going to whitelist certain things as people complain, right? So we're going to blacklist everything. Start with just nothing. You're not allowed to play the game. Clicking on the go button, you get reported and banned, you know? And then, oh, well, maybe that's a bit harsh. We'll let people play customs for 5 minutes. Okay, maybe that's a bit harsh. Now, you know what I mean there. We'll start like really extreme. We'll go the other way around, right? Like putting in incremental changes
But
isn't fixing it.
this seems like they went extreme with RMT, and now they're going more extreme. So also to catch everyone up, because I see a question in chat. So the change that they did recently, like a week ago, was the Giga got to help me out. What's the name of it? The one rig,
What the rig?
boiler. Was it boiler
the
rig? Part of a B
Oh,
or
you're not talking about these two. You're talking about another rig.
No. Go ahead. What were we gonna say? What's it called?
I was going to say the LBT1961A load-bearing chest rig.
Load bearing chest rig. Yes.
That's the one.
And then the MPPV multi velocity rig, I think, is like some of the words in the name
Velocity
of it.
Systems MPPV multi-purpose patrol vest.
Those two
Those
rigs, right? They're just regular. They're not armor rigs or regular rigs. You can only carry 2 at them at a time each on your PMC. So if you have, one on your PMC, one in the backpack of the load bearing rig, and you try to loot another one, it just gives you an error message like, you can only, you're exceeding the limit of 2. And same for the MPVV, whatever. Now, I want to, so let me try to go back to what I was saying earlier, was that the comment on what you were saying, it seems like if this was targeting RMT, let's accept that as a premise, and RMT, banning people from dropping non-found raid items was like the extreme measure.
Yeah.
This seems like not de-escalating. This seems like escalating, like we're going even more extreme, which is confusing to me, because if the RMT ban wasn't working, that's like, how does this help RMT? You know what I mean? Like dropping items. This just helps you loot more, because the reason why these are like high valued, like for example, Sheaf GG is like, he does this all the time. He'll go interchange raid bag, literally brings in 2 of those rigs each in his backpack and just fills them up with loot, right? So it's like, what's going, like, I don't understand. Is this a balance change? Is this a change because RMT? I don't. And then on top of that, Giga, why is the balance change immersion breaking? That's like, you can't carry 2 limits. Like, it's the freaking trees and squad, dude. It's just like, I don't. It's probably gonna affect me 1 out of 1,000 raids, maybe less. But I just don't understand. So
it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. But this, you say it's more extreme, but I can't think of a situation. Maybe there is one, but I can't think of a situation off the top of my head where the RMT item dropping and item bringing into raid limit is in place, where you're able to circumvent it using rigs.
Right.
That's the thing that I don't understand. It's like saying you're going to go to prison for 5 years because you've shoplifted. But you can also go for 3 years as well because of this other thing. And it's like, well, it's pointless because you already, maybe that's a bad example because you can't have, you can have sentences that stack, whatever. Assuming that they don't stack on top of each other, you say, well, it's already 5. So what's the point of bringing in the thing for 3? Because the rigs thing doesn't even seem that big of a deal. It's just for bringing in like mountains of stuff. But you can't bring in mountains of stuff anymore because you can't bring anything. So it feels pointless. Those 2 things overlap over each other. One is more extreme than the other. So why do both? But
that's
maybe, but this is the thing.
It's almost like they're admitting that the change they did for RMT, if we accept the premise that this is an RMT change, it's almost like they're admitting that the ban to drop items wasn't effective. We have to do this measure now. That to me is an escalation.
I don't think that's what they're saying. To me, what I think they're admitting is the RMT problem is so bad, we need to fix it. We don't know what they're going to do, and we can't preemptively solve this problem. And to try to avoid them circumventing it in some other way, we're just going to do all the things. We're just going to block all the things, even if some of them are pointless. We're going to block them all because we just can't figure out what they're going to do next. And doing this cat and mouse thing just isn't working. So we're just going to block everything we can think of conceivably.
Would you only do the 2 rigs and not all the rigs?
Because they're the most efficient rigs for space to slot, I guess. Because otherwise, it's kind of hard to do some of the other rigs. I mean, I don't know the full list of what rigs are involved. Is it just those 2? Is it only
just those 2? That's the thing. It's literally those 2.
Okay. Well, in that case, I don't know anymore. Okay. I don't really know. I can only imagine that maybe they'll bring it in for some others as well. Dude.
Okay, I was just curious.
It must just be because it's the maximum slot value, and they saw people bringing in loads of them. It must be.
It must be. That's the only thing
It
that makes
must
sense to
be.
me because I don't really like assuming that it was a change based off RMT because I just feel like that it just doesn't look
It
good.
has to be. It has to be. I
But it
can't see
sounds
any other
so
world.
bad because
But this already is in
what
place for
would
bags and
you
things, right? Like they don't care about that because you can't stack ANA bags, you can't stack pilgrims, you can't
Mhm.
stack tri-zips. You can stack the other bag that is the same size as the tri-zip, but you can't stack tri-zips. What's it called? The switchblade? It's exactly the same size. You can stack those as much as you like, but that's new in the game. And so you can't stack tri-zips because that was put in previously. That's someone saying you can still bring 4 black rocks in a raid back still.
Yeah,
So
I don't know. It's such a weird change, man.
or maybe people weren't doing that, so they didn't bother. Because
Yeah.
this one, I mean, the load
Maybe
bearing
you're
one is pretty
right.
sick, right? It's like it's 18 slots for 9, which is pretty
You,
insane.
you
And
know
then the
what?
MPPV is what
24.
24 slots for 12. So they're both 2 to 1.
Yeah. Maybe what they were doing was they were tracking known RMTers, right? They had like a list of RMTers and they were tracking their behavior. So they did these earlier changes where they banned dropping items because mind you, we didn't really talk about, but they did ban dropping moonshine. I don't think you can drop non-found array because I saw that on the list that wasn't banned and I was like,
Yeah.
dude, there might be something there. Because my
Well, yeah,
thought
because
was
you can cycle it through your hideout
yes, but then I
and then
was like,
sell
would
the
an
items on the
RMTer
flea.
do that? And but like you could buy them from the flea market for twice the price you could sell it to therapists because you can sell it to therapists for 128,000 rubles and they go for like 200,000 rubles ish. So I was like, would an RMTer like do like a 2-to-1 ratio? Is that like I don't know. I was thinking, I don't know if I should be
Yeah.
thinking these things, but now it's banned. So
It probably
I
wasn't
forgot
because
where
it
I was
was the
going with.
food stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
But this is the thing,
I
there's
don't
too
know.
many loopholes and whatever,
I know
right?
it's
Like they
crazy.
just that's why I almost feel like they're trying to scorch their thing and then whitelist. I
Mhm.
still feel that that's the way, but
Well, I think is that finishing my thought, they were tracking these RMTers' behaviors once they did the first sweep, and then they did a couple other changes. They saw people were dropping tons of moonshines now, and they were like, okay, we got to ban the moonshine. And then maybe they saw people were bringing in all these rigs and dropping them with stuff full of them. I don't know, and maybe they're like, okay, we got to ban that now too. Maybe that if the change was related to RMT, for me, the only thing I can think of is that it was a balance change. I just think it was done in a bad way, but what do I know?
yeah, I mean, I guess you could argue if people were going in legitimately with bags full of rigs and saying, okay, well, I have a bigger bag than I should
Mhm,
have
mhm.
effectively, then maybe I can see that from that point. I
Yeah,
don't know. But I
I
mean,
would
the way that you fix
think
that, right? The way that you
yes.
fix that is that you just change the size of the rig. You
Thank
make it so that
you.
it's not so efficient.
Thank you. You can make the rig heavier. There's, like, actual balance you could do within the confines of the game that fits the immersion instead of putting an arbitrary rule like the Tarkov god is just saying, "No, my child, you are not allowed." It's
Yeah,
like
because now
physic
you're like, right, well, I'm gonna have 2 MPVVs, I'm gonna have 2 load bearings, and then you've got a new min-max equation so that you've got
yeah.
the, 2 of each, and then I'm gonna bring two
It's so
Prototols to give
weird,
to my
man.
friend just because
It just
I feel like putting it to its limit.
yeah. Sorry, I just had to get your take on that because I was just baffled. And like I said, I saw his Rengar's tweet about it, and I was just like, yeah, I agree, dude. Not that Tarkov's a dog shit game, but I agree based on your context that this
You
is
heard it
like
first.
this doesn't make any sense. Like, yeah. But apparently he was just joking. I got baited.
Yeah, I don't know. But I mean, look, it's a legitimate point of discussion,
Hmm.
right? As to the change itself and whether the change is good and whether it should have been done a different way, probably. Again, most of these things are, even though they seem very extreme, most of the changes are quite fringe outside of the
Hmm.
early wipe and keys. That's
Yeah.
the main thing. Because the thing that affects the most is the key piece, because that's like, well, I'm already done with that quest, so I don't need the key anymore, so I give it to you. Because it's annoying to have to go with your friend to go and do his quest Especially if you've
Sure,
got a couple
sure.
of people who all want to do stuff. "Oh, everyone wants to use my office key, but I am the only one that's got one. So I have to go to everybody's raid. They have to make sure that I don't die because I have to have it in my secure container. Obviously, that was always a bit of a problem. But it
Hmm.
means that if I then don't need it anymore, I can give it to a friend and they can keep it in their secure container. So if I
Right.
die protecting them, then they can still do the quest. Whereas now I have to survive because I have to keep it on me because it'll vaporize if I give it to my friend. I have to physically go into the raid with them. I have to unlock the door for them.
Hmm.
It's a lot more annoying for players to help rather than just being able to give those keys over. I think some of those early quest keys should be excluded from it. I just don't think like people aren't doing
The
RMT for those
problem
early quest
is,
keys, are they?
well, I don't know
Are
because
they?
the market could easily pivot. I mean, if the top end of the market was Red Rebel, maybe now the top end of the market is your because it's all progression based, right? You give me
It's
money,
office.
you get yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, no, seriously, seriously, like it could. I don't know. Maybe like maybe there will be like a key if they had a list of like here's all the keys for the early quests. These are
Mm.
okay. Then someone would be like, aha, I found a spot in the market. I'm gonna have a early quest kit starter package. Buy now, only $15. Like,
Yeah,
oh
and you
my
get
god.
portable exit cabin of the factory zone, you get bunkhouse key,
Right.
you get dorms 206, you get customs office key, you get da da da.
Maybe.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. I mean, it's quite short lived, but I mean, these people will find a way, won't they? So maybe that's the thing. Everyone has to go and individually get their own progression. That's fine. You can still help your friend. You just have to be alive and you have to open the door for them. So it's
Hmm.
still possible. It's just a pain.
Yeah.
Let's
It's
see. It's going to have way more impact though at the beginning of the next wipe, as I said before, and only then
yeah.
will we see how annoying it is for people. For me, it won't
Hmm.
matter because I play solo anyway, so kind of whatevs.
Hmm.
But for people who normally play as 2 or 3, and especially people who maybe are not playing as much, and one person gets the one key, and they I've got the key now, da da. But you can work around it if you go into raids together and you're happy to play with each other and not all just. I guess that's the thing. If you're not super hardcore and you're just trying to get max progression, then you will probably just go into raids with your buddies anyway and complete their stuff. If you're not desperate to get to max traders as fast as possible,
Yeah. Yeah.
then
It's I mean, I see it as like in the context of fighting RMT, it's like I can tolerate it, It's like yeah. Um so I do think it is a little busted. I mean, one wipe I did back when long ago you could there was no found and random flea market. I did drop my buddy. I basically liquidated my stash into labs cards and red cards and whatever I could buy and dropped them like a couple sick cases full of, these really expensive cards. Like, here you go, have fun with your wipe. And I fueled his Giga Chadness, so to speak.
mm,
And I think that's kind of busted, because you could selectively choose who you want to boost in a way, like, I don't know. So,
yeah, I guess like what are they concerned about? People bypassing the experience and not
mhm,
learning things themselves, I guess. I mean, there's a if that's what they want. I
sure.
mean, I'm sure Nikita wants that, so that's fair enough. If he wants people
Mhm.
to all have to achieve the things, or at least partly on their own, you have to actually be there
Yeah.
and do the stuff and complete the quests and get the gear. You can't just have it handed out to you. But you can still have gear handed out to you. You can
Yeah.
still have a lot of the gear handed out to you. It's just not as easy now. I guess it limits it a bit. I don't know. It must be. This is the thing for me. It must also be. It must just be really about RMT. It has to be
It
because
has to be.
the boosting thing just kind of comes as a collateral damage, sort of nice side product or whatever they
Yeah, I
want,
don't
right?
buy the boosting things.
Yeah, it's just. But I think he also wrote it that way too, right? Because he said, also we never really intended for it, so sorry that this also hits that, but like we never really intended for you to be doing that anyway, so you're out of luck, kind of thing. Like not
But
that this is unintended collateral damage. It's just collateral damage that also happens to coincide with my view of how people should play the game.
yes. And if we by Nikita's how the game's set up and by Nikita's definition, then apparently dropping gear to somebody is not boosting because you're allowed to do it. So that's not boosting. But
Currently, yes.
dropping, power chords or keys is boosting. Like I said, I feel like I don't really like, I would like, if I was talking to Nikita and he said that, I would like push back and challenge him on that because it just, like, maybe he means something deeper than boosting and like, what does that mean to Nikita, because it's just kind of like a broad term and I feel like there's a lot of like holes you can
Yeah, I
poke
think
out of
so. Because
there.
he probably doesn't mean that about gear either. It's just that they can't really restrict that without breaking the PvP interaction. And so
hmm
the other stuff has been, as I said, it's collateral damage, right? They never really
Yes.
intended to block, but they wouldn't have put, okay, let's put it this way. They wouldn't have put it in place if it was just about boosting, because it doesn't
hmm
matter enough, but they put it in place because of RMT, and it just so happens to block, here's boosting as a circle, it blocks this piece. And so
Right.
they go, okay, well, it gets rid of that bit, so fine, right? Rather than trying to make distinctions between this key's not okay, but this key, piece of
Right.
gear is, or whatever. It's like all
Right.
of it was kind of frowned upon a little bit, but it was tolerated. But that bit's now
hmm
gone because it's been caught on a bigger
Up
circle in
and
the Venn diagram. It's
yeah.
kind of the way that I see it. You could argue in some ways that the game progression is in some ways more important than the gear as well, is another way of thinking about it. I don't think that's like, I don't think anybody does think about it in that way, but you could argue that from a conceptual perspective at least, you may have 3 slicks, but you have no way to buy more. So what does it matter, right? You still need to be able to go and do Punisher. You need to go and do this quest
hmm
and that quest and the other quest. So the progression, it's a bit like playing late game where XP is more important than anything else. I'll hand in like 3 labs cards for like 6k XP because A, I don't really play labs that much, but B, the money doesn't matter. I can always make more money. It's fine. But getting XP without having to set foot in raid, like it's just free XP on top of the other stuff that I'm doing anyway. So I'll always take XP. XP is the most valuable resource in the end game. So it's a little bit like that. The progression is kind of the most important part. And given that this gets rid of boosting for progression, which is arguably more important than boosting just on gear,
hmm
then maybe that
Well,
actually
gear
sort of does something.
is a form of progression, but
It
not
is.
in the same aspect of having a key that is basically a permanent progression. Because once you have the key and it's in your
Exactly.
container, you're untouchable.
Well,
Like the
this is the thing,
keys.
right? So there's very few things in the game that aren't permanent progression when you get to that point, because
hmm
gear, because of as a sort of output of the way the system functions right now, the permanent ability to buy that gear ends up being a permanent piece of progression. So gear is actually a
Yeah.
result of the system,
Yeah, that's a good point.
right?
Yeah.
So you get the progression and then you can buy the gear forever. So it's actually, the gear is actually the end product, interestingly. So it's not
Yeah.
even a piece of progression in and of itself. It's actually a result of the progression elsewhere in the game, I would argue. Which is
And
why then I think that quest progression is then more important.
yeah, and that's why I love the white cycle, because getting
Hmm.
those small little trader levels is like the next gear progression. Like, oh, I finally have access to this grip that's like slightly better than the other grip, or I have access to this grip that I can do for a gunsmith, or this grip that's like, yeah, like 10 times the price on the flea market. Now it's really cheap for me because I did all these quests. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
Cool.
So it's I don't know. We'll see. But hopefully we get something soon. Tarkov TV. We have something to speak about.
Yeah.
Something to do with streets. Something to
hmm
do with Lighthouse expansion. Maybe we get an update eventually. Ever. I don't know. Maybe Wizzy gets shot in the head and dies. Who knows? Who
They
knows what's
just
gonna?
kill off that lore quest
They just kill him.
storyline.
Yeah, we're done with that now, guys. By the way, we're just
Classic storytelling, dude. Just kill off a main character. That's the end. I love it.
yeah,
Imagine.
yeah.
Oh my god, that'd be
Uh,
hilarious.
so yeah, we'll see. I mean, we're just waiting for stuff. I mean, me for now, I'm just biding my time, making videos about random things
hmm
and testing stuff.
Oh yeah. But maybe we'll talk about that another time. Yeah.
Yeah, we could talk about it another time. But I'm just testing random things.
hmm
I'm thinking, what's really interesting that we'd have wanted to know for ages. I'm just like kind of like racking through my lists of stuff that I've just written down quickly, going like, oh yeah, some guy wanted to know about this. Like, maybe how would I test this? Just like start off on a random trail of thought, or like, what happens with this? Does this work? Very much in the. It's kind of funny in some ways because I'm in the sort of like quite a creative mode for
Yeah.
ideas when there's
Yeah.
like nothing else happening, because sometimes it's like it's very obvious what you need to do. Like when the wipe happens, the topics to cover are really obvious. Whereas at the moment, the topics to cover aren't really that obvious. And after a sort of couple of weeks of like just trying a few different things, I think I'm sort of like hitting a stride of just like random offbeat ideas, which is kind of fun.
Yeah. That's
I'm
cool.
actually kind of enjoying myself. Like I'm probably
Yeah.
enjoying myself making content more than I am actually playing Tarkov, which is kind of funny.
Yeah. In my opinion, this is like the best time to be creative, because there's just like, yeah. It's like the handouts aren't I don't mean it like in a negative way, but the handouts from BSG aren't really there. So
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
think it like helps inspire people to do really cool things. Like I just watched
exactly.
one of Jesse's videos he just pushed out, and it was very different. Well, yeah, pretty different from his regular content. And I was like, dude, I love it. More, I feel like Tarkov's content is moving in a better direction, a more um evergreen direction also, more timeless direction because definitely storytelling stuff. I'm digging it. So yeah, maybe we'll talk about that next week. Is something I've been wanting to talk about myself.
Yeah, cool. No, that sounds interesting. Yeah. Well, I think there's definitely a shift, but yeah, we can have a look around. I'll get myself back into the speed of things. I've actually hardly watched because normally I broadly keep up to date with what people are posting,
Hmm.
but because I've been away and things, and I was just kind of like, right, next thing, next thing. I'm sort of getting back into back up to speed. But I've not really watched a lot of other people, so I'll absorb myself fully back into the metaverse that is the Tarkov YouTube meta, and then yeah, we can talk about it next time.
Cool.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
All right. Well, I guess that wraps it up, Gay. Unless you got any closing thoughts, dude.
No, man, I think that's it for today. I think that's
Yep.
it for today. I have a shotty video where I was testing different slugs and stuff, but that'll go out tomorrow, so people can see that. There's some interesting results. It mainly comes down to zeroing. The zeroing weirdness. The extraordinarily high level overview of it, for those who haven't watched the video yet, by the time we come to releasing this
Hmm.
podcast on the Monday, is that all the guns are zeroed for 7mm buckshot. So when you shoot a slug out, the ballistics is very different. So if you try to shoot over long range with a slug, it's all kinds of kooky. So I've had a look at that. That's been interesting and kind of fun. So yeah, that's getting released tomorrow. But yeah, otherwise, yeah, we're just wait and see mode. Tempted to play a few other different bits of games. I ended up getting sucked back into Dota very slightly, like the last for like a couple of nights. Like once you go to some of the
Yeah.
pro games, like you think, oh, dude, this game's sick,
Yes.
and then you play
No,
for
I
three
know
days, and
it.
you're just like, oh, I remember how terrible I am, and then you stop playing again. But yeah, other
Yeah.
than that, we're just waiting for updates, really. So I think that's it. That's all I got to say. All I got to say.
Cool. Yeah. We'll end it there, guys, and appreciate the support and you tune in as always, and we'll see you next week.
Catch you later.